Hi, and welcome to the review for your Interim 1 midterm exam. In this video, we're going to talk about the different things that you need to review and study in order to prepare for the midterm exam. One of the first things you're going to want to do in order to prepare for this is to go back and review the different stories and texts that we've read this year. All of the things that we've read are located in your Journeys in Literature, American Traditions textbook. You should have received the paper copy with your school supplies this year, but if you don't have the paper copy for some reason, don't panic. There are two online versions of the textbook that you can choose from. To get to those, log into the course, click on Content, and then scroll down in the table of contents until you see Journeys in Literature, American Traditions, Volume C. When you click on that link, you're going to see two different versions of the electronic textbook. Either one of them works. Just click on one of them and it will open up the textbook, and then it is going to be just like the paperback version of it except online. If you look in the table of contents of the textbook, you're going to see the writings from the 3 units we've studied so far: Early American Writings, Voices of an Emerging Nation, and Creating an American Mythology. Go back and review each of these texts, especially ones that you struggled with the first time through or that you don't remember the details from the story. Right, one of the next things you're going to want to do is make sure you are familiar with the literary terms that we learned this semester. Some of the major ones that we looked at were allusion. And allusion is a reference to a familiar literary or historical person or event, and it's used to make an idea more easily understood. The main allusion that we saw in this quarter was the Puritans alluding to the Israelites in their sermons and writings. And they did that because they felt their struggles were similar to the Israelites when they escaped Egypt, traveled through the desert, and finally made their way to the promised land. All right. Another thing we looked at was primary source. In Unit 2, we read a lot of primary sources, such as the Declaration of Independence, the pamphlets written by Thomas Paine. Those are all considered primary sources because they're an original record, document, artifact, or other source of information written or produced by someone during the time under study. Okay, we also looked at the different points of view. First person point of view is where you're telling the story and you use those pronouns I and me. Third person is telling the story from an outside observer, and you avoid the use of those first person pronouns. You use third person pronouns like she went to the party, he went to the store. And then we also looked at second person point of view, and although we don't see that often in writing, it is used from time to time, and that's where you're addressing the audience directly and you're using the pronoun you. You are going to go to work. You are going to study for the test. Okay. Some other things that we looked at during this time, during these units, were figurative language and imagery. And these were the things that helped us really create those pictures in the reader's mind. Imagery appeals to those senses, your 5 senses: seeing, hearing, smelling, taste, and feeling things. And the writers in the text that we read really used imagery a lot, especially Olaudah Equiano, where he was trying to make us feel like we were experiencing what he felt on a slave ship. They used they used the figurative language to really help create a picture in the reader's mind. Another thing that the writers did that we studied was the mood, the emotions or feelings that are conveyed in a literary work. And we learned that mood can change throughout a work, such as in the Star-Spangled Banner, where at the beginning the mood was kind of tense and unsure, and then finally towards the end of the poem it becomes much more positive, brave, and joyful, excited, and patriotic. All right, so keep those things in mind. As you're studying for the test, make sure you understand each of these different literary terms. There will be questions on the quiz about some of these terms. All right, let's look at each unit individually so you know exactly what you need from each of these units as you study. In Unit 1, we looked at early American writings, and these were the writings of the first people to come to the American colonies. And during this time period, we studied the Great Awakening. The Great Awakening was a revival of religious fervor. They really dug into their religious beliefs, and those religious beliefs really directed their lives. During this time, though, a lot of pastors believed that people had become lax in their devotion to God, so their sermons became very strong and very full of a lot of fire and brimstone. And they were using persuasive techniques to convince people that if they weren't following the teachings of religion, their religious teachings, that there was some really bad things that were going to happen to them. And those became known as the fire and brimstone sermons. And we looked at a couple of those. And no matter what was going on in the lives of the people during this time, they definitely had certain values. And those values, a lot of the times, came from the teachings of their religion. And if you look at the Puritan values, those things that they held most valuable to themselves were piety, courage, and industry. With piety, that is a deep respect for God, and through that, a demonstration of one's faith and religious observance. They practiced their religion and followed their religion in everything they did. Work, play, everything. Another value that they held dear to themselves was courage. And they needed courage, especially coming to a new and unfamiliar land. And a lot of times that courage that they had meant the difference between life and death. Another value that was important to them was industry, the Puritan work ethic. They believed you had to work hard. Even when things were not going your way, you had to work hard, especially if you were looking to earn God's favor and have your soul saved. So, and another thing with hard work, you had to work hard in order to survive the harsh conditions that they found in the New World. Over here, if you look, I have a slide from one of our earlier lessons in Unit 1 where they talk about the Puritan values for living in the different texts. So here's a couple of different examples from Of Plymouth Plantation, where you can see examples of the piety, courage, and industry of the Puritans and of that time. All right, in Unit 2, we began looking at the voices of an emerging nation. And during this unit, we read the documents from the Founding Fathers that focused in on encouraging people to stand up against the British rule and form their own country. A lot of the writings that we looked at use the art of persuasion, ethos, pathos, and logos. So make sure you're familiar with those three terms. Again, remember, ethos is your ethics or your credibility. Pathos is using emotions to persuade. And logos is using logic and statistics to persuade. During the time period that our Founding Fathers wrote, it was considered the Age of Enlightenment. And some of the characteristics of that time period were truth. They started turning to science and reason instead of religious teachings for the answers to life's questions. They did still have a strong religious belief, and they did believe that God created the universe and established natural laws, but they also began to believe that humans were given the ability to discover, understand, and apply God's laws to their life. They started developing an idea about government and that society should improve themselves and move towards a more perfect existence. And they started looking towards a government that was focused on decisions made by the people as a whole instead of just a few select people or a king making those decisions. And they started looking towards the individual more, and how the individual could better themselves, and by doing so also help others and improve the lives of others. They felt that humanity was capable of self-improvement, and the literature that they wrote talked about the social and political theories that they applied to self-improvement and to the public sphere. The types of literature that we read in this unit were the speeches, pamphlets, and government documents. One of the ones that we read were the pamphlets written by Thomas Paine, Common Sense in the American Crisis. And in these pamphlets, we see strong evidence of the art of persuasion, ethos, pathos, and logos. Pamphlets were popular at the time because they were easy to print, inexpensive to make, and they were brief enough that they could be read aloud in the public. And they were written in a format that was easy for everybody to understand. The persuasive techniques they used were to convince the readers that it was in their best interest to form an allegiance and unify to defeat the British king and the British government. Paine wrote The American Crisis to rally the troops, and then Common Sense was more for rationalizing why we need to do this. And he made the case for the rule of law. That should be rule, not roll of law. He made a case for the rule of law, and that helped develop and encourage people to join the cause to defeat the British government, and then ultimately also played into how we developed the American government afterwards. All right, and then Unit 4, we studied the American mythology, and we focused in on those things that were important to the values of a new formed country. And in doing so, we started looking at stories that that developed those things that were important to the developing nation. And in the American mythology, which is similar a lot to the Greek and the Norse mythology, there were certain characteristics that developed. These stories were often set in the past, in remote and exciting places and times. They featured incredible, heroic, impressive, magical, or mysterious events and their consequences, and they were filled with remarkable, strange, or exaggerated characters, and they were meant to convey a positive message about a nation or its people. And the story that we focused in on was Rip Van Winkle. Make sure you have read through the story completely and that you understand what's happening in the story and how it is a representation of each of these 4 characteristics of the American mythology. If you did not understand the story when you read it through, do a Google search. There's a lot of websites out there that can help you with understanding Rip Van Winkle. All right. The next part of this review is to help you practice taking the midterm test. I've put together a few questions for you to go through. Most of them are multiple choice, and when you get to the end, there's a few activities to help you with the questions about essays that will be on the midterm exam. So I'm not going to read the questions out loud. What I want you to do is read each question, look at the options, and then choose the option you think is the best answer to the question. After you do that, you can go on to the next slide, which is going to show you the correct answer. All right, so let's go ahead and begin. At this time, pause the video if you haven't chosen your answer. And then when you have chosen your answer, restart the video again, and the next slide will show you the correct answer. All right, The next question, again, read through the question. If you need to pause the slide before going on to the answer, go ahead and pause the video at this time until you have chosen your answer. Moving to the answer side in 3, 2, 1. Next question. Moving to the answer side in 3, 2, 1. Next question. Moving to the answer side in 3, 2, 1. Next question. Moving to the answer slide in 3, 2, 1. Next question. Moving to the answer slide in 3, 2, 1. Next question. Moving to the answer slide in 3, 2, 1. Next question. All right, that's the end of the multiple choice questions. The next part of the review is going to focus in on writing an essay. The first thing I want you to do is pause the video and then highlight the words in the paragraph that create an image of the Catskills as a beautiful, majestic, and magical place. In order to do this, pause the video, take a screenshot of the paragraphs over here, and then paste them onto a Word document. And then you should be able to go into the Word tools and use the drawing features to highlight the different sections of the different sections of the paragraph that create an image of the Catskills as beautiful, majestic, and magical places. When you've completed that, then you can come back and restart the video and see the answers to that, or at least the ones that I saw created the imagery of the Catskills. These are the sections that I highlighted as words that help create that imagery. All right, going on to the next slide. All right, the next thing you're going to do to help you prepare is to label or highlight the parts of an essay. The different parts of the essay that you're going to highlight or label in the sample are the title, introduction, the hook, background information, thesis statement, body paragraphs, topic sentence, textual evidence, explanation of the evidence, conclusion paragraph, your restated thesis, the summary of main points, and the final thought. Again, you can pause the recording, take a screenshot of the sample essay and paste it onto a Word document, and then using the tools in Word, you can label and highlight the different parts of the essay. When you're ready, restart the video and then you can see the answer slide. Okay. Here is the slide with the different parts of the essay labeled. We've got the introduction, the body paragraph, and the conclusion paragraph. And then you can see there's the title, the hook, background information, thesis statement. Those are all within the introduction paragraph. In the body paragraph, you find the topic sentence, textual evidence, and the explanation of the evidence. Missing from this sample essay is a transition sentence that would go right here that transitions into the next body paragraph or to the conclusion if you have finished writing your body paragraphs. And then in our conclusion paragraph, we find the restated thesis, the summary of the main points, and the final thought. All right, that brings us to the end of the Interim 1 midterm exam review. If you still have questions and comments about anything that will be on the interim, please let me know. Send me an email, give me a phone call, or attend study hall or office hours. Again, that you need to review for the interim. It starts on Thursday at 12:01, and you can take your interim anytime after that. Again, though, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, let me know. Good luck, everyone. Have a good midterm.